Now we have Maija Purgaile, a Latvian artist and art educator, and she will tell us about Rūdolfs Heimrāts.
So, as you know, I'm Maija Purgaile. I want to introduce you to my to great artist, Rūdolfs Heimrāts. And I'm so happy that I was his student at the Department of Textile Art in Academy of Arts in Latvia. And I want to tell about his artistic, human, and pedagogical legacy he left behind. What is particularly significant today, especially now, when humanity, including art, is not progressing in a sustainable direction. And Rūdolfs Heimrāts was a very sensitive person, like a gardener, both in life and in art, and in his relationships with students. His personality was marked by the great understanding of moral and spiritual values. Where did his personality, who loved nature and the world generally, took root? We see that those were family traditions, the influence of people around him, and he remembered his grandmother as very, very close person to him. And we will see in his tapestries all women, and I think that that's an image of his grandmother. And there was spoken professional art and craft skills, and of course education. The values that he observed in his life formed a comprehensive personality capable of creating modern, individual, innovating professional skill-based art and pedagogical systems that seriously contributed to the growth of students' personality. And he don't want to make students like him, like he is, but try to found something individual, characteristic for everyone. And Rūdolfs Heimrāts was born in 1926 in Bern, a small village located in Zemgale, Latvia. From the age of 7, he worked at the Berner Mill. The Berner Mill was both a flour mill and a full processing and wheeling company. As a child, Rūdolfs spent his summers herding sheep and cows, exchanged by the beauty of the meadow flowers. Nowadays, we can say that there is a problem with children's rights, that he must work in 7 years old. But it gives much for him in the future. He embroidered flowers with cross-stitch. He became passionate for embroidery, that it drew away his attention from the animals, who sometimes turned away from the wonderful artist. And we can see this Peter's Kuntiņš pictures, and maybe we can imagine how it was, this look, when he was a child. In his diary, he recounts saving a stray sheep from drowning in pond, fearing that others would also wander away. And so in his pedagogical work with students, he always tried to stay with their students. And first artistic impressions was mother's knitted ethnographical rows. And we have different kind of goals in every of our, in the Kursene, Latgale, and Zemgale, and Digzeme. our regions. And it was also an introduction of the process of reeling of wool in the mill. There, Rudolf could watch how the wool from the sheep in case was transformed into fabrics. And he bought himself a book of ornamental specimen, book for embroidery. And maybe it was like this book of Latvian artist Jurijs Matenieks, who was very well known in 1920s and 1930s. And he was applied art designs were widely used in the work of needlewomen, weavers, ceramics, and powders. And he combined traditional Latvian folk ornaments with the style characteristic of his time, drawing his inspiration from nature. And from his school years, he remembered impressions from the local painter, painters, and also from exhibition of ascending Latin artist Kārlis Miesnieks. And he remembered, his diary, that Kārlis Miesnieks spoke so sincerely about his artworks that he later be able to tell us so in such style about his travelings, about art in our study time. This gave us the opportunity to virtually visit Japan and New York and other countries during Soviet era when it was very hard to get outside this iron curtain. And he was also very influenced by acquaintance with the productions of Jānis Rozentāls. And we know that Rozentāls was living some years in Finland. We have a Finnish wife. And we see that these strong impressions of painting are reflected in the tapestries of Rudolf Heimrāts. They are woven paintings. Education. From 1942 till 1948, he studied in the textile art department of the Riga School of Art and Crafts. His studies were temporarily interrupted by the war in 1944. In 1948 till 1954, studied in Applied and Creative Arts Department of the Latvian Academy of Art. It's a ceramic. In 1961, Henna founded the Textile Art Department at the Latvian Academy of Arts and headed it until death in 1992. And one looks back with appreciation to the brilliant teachers, but with gratitude to those who touch our human feelings. The curriculum is so much necessary raw material, but waltz is the vital element for the growing plant and for the soul of the child. Those are words from Carl Gustav Paul, but I think it's the same as that Rudolf Heimrāts was realized in his life. And his artistic heritage is very, very great. And I can say that the main themes in Rudolf Heimrāts' works, as emphasized by the Latvian writer Anna Brigadere, are God, nature, and work or labor. They are supplemented by works dedicated to depicting a full life in all its stages, during the solitaire ban was had to be spoken of in parables, in a hidden form that was understood by his own people but remained hidden for the authorities. And there is his upper tapestry pressure woman. And in what is they want to say that he asks us to make all details very, very, that we can look in the close distance, and every work must be looked from far and close distance. And you see the detail is as art for itself. But in this big tapestry we see it's only on one little corner. As I believe the man's soul is like a woman image. And when we look at Rūdolfs Heimrāts artworks, we can imagine that this is portrait of his soul. And those women are like this soul impression. Why it's so important today? Because we have largely entered in a world created by artificial intelligence, where almost everything is possible except for childhood, which artificial intelligence can never have, including emotions and soul. These are the values that are especially important in competition with the world of artificial intelligence. Yesterday we heard many things about artificial intelligence, and today I want to ask you to return some things that comes from our soul. And this is a task of art, I think so. And also Carl Gustav Jung wrote such words. The creative process is a living thing implanted as it were in the soul of man. Nature is very close to Rudolf Heimrāts, and in his diary he wrote, I love walking in the forest. It is located next to my country house. The air here is saturated with the wonderful aroma of grass, leaves and flowers, and is full of sounds. So during one walk, looking back in the direction of mine, I myself would not believe my eyes. A wonderful deer stood in front of me and looked at me. I brought, afraid to move, but after a minute the animal disappeared. The impression of this meeting was so great that I could not calm down until I sat at room to depict, at least tie up my feelings. And this big, I think that it's very good characterizing of his work in common. And there is different time. It's a midsummer night, feel butterflies, and in different colors we see the November and mountains. The impression from traveling somewhere in Platy, we have so high mountains. And it's very important in our days to preserve nature, and it was also what he had made and told us in his tapestry in 1981. When now all folk occupations are very close to his works, and as a student we must make copies of folk art in our history museum, and we did it half a year. We every week go to museum and make copies. And three girls, and we found different things in this tapestry. Three is mentioned and as in different meanings. 3 girls in garden, 3 girls who growing roses, and then so and different places in last year with different costumes. And folk traditions. And we go the Midsummer Night decoration is also close to his soul, and he knew how to celebrate Midsummer also in the war time in the camp in France, where he found small flowers near the barbed parapets and served as holiday decoration in the barracks. Latin culture heritage. I know that very important as also in Estonia and Lithuania are folk festivals, and this is one of first his tapestries, 1960, and also festival dance. A few human and spiritual values are in such what he wanted to hold also in his tapestries, and is an ancient Moses, Adam and Eva, wonderful garden. The figure of Saint Francis was very close to Rudolf, to whom several works made in the batik technique are dedicated. They could not be exhibited during the Soviet period, but his son Martin Heimrāts introduced me to them. And the image of a bird is very common in Heimrāts' works, which indicated a spiritual closeness to the figure of Saint Francis. The song. The title of this work is Song, but it essentially includes a depiction of Latvian duties, line of mar and dark and others. They are sung about in Latvian folk songs, but they could not be directly and openly discussed in art during the Soviet era. Next up, a very beautiful tapestry, a Saturday evening. And we know as sauna as place where both body and spirit are purified. This magnificent tapestry gives us a special sense of purity, which only an artist with a pure and clear soul can place in his work. And the work depicted all periods of personal life, youth, maturity, and old age, each with its own beauty. Next to it, we see a sketch that was materialized due to the artist's leader. But I think that our task is bring his rich legacy into the sun, which should not fade from our memory, disappear from our museums. To continue his soulful and spiritual, rich artistic and pedagogical style. He did not try to create new artists like himself, but sought each other once integrated. And there is one his students Inga schooling artwork that which I think is most close to his style. And there are some smite tapestries, and I thank you to organizers of Warsaw Textile League for the opportunity to participate in this event. Thank you for the financial support from the Nordic Cultural Point for my present participation in Warsaw Textile Week. Thank you for your support to Heimrāts and Martin Heimrāts. Thanks to Strišanova, Prokus Heimrāts, Rūdolfs Heimrāts, 1984, some images of tapestries were taken. And thank you for your time. And don't lose faith and hope for good.